Tell us a bit about that the Boo Ray battle.
We probably gamble 3 days out the week. When Mike calls, the buy-in goes up a little higher. I say probably 20,000. And then Mike is competitive, man. I remember one time we played spades for 36 hours.
What?
Damn.
Guys, me and Michael were partners, and we were playing against two other guys. And they had us stuck BMAC 900,000.
What?
So we were playing the first hand bid itself. We was betting 50,000 on that. Betting 50 on who gets 7, and then 50,000 on the game. What made it even more interesting, it was the day that he actually supposed to make his announcement that he was officially coming back. He canceled the press conference, everything. We played for 36 hours, man.
Did anyone ever find out why he canceled the press conference? Did that news ever break?
No, actually we was down the street from the press conference, and one of our good friends' restaurant, they had us down 900,000, man. We got back all the money except 20,000.
Y'all were down 900K and fought back?
And fought,
20
yeah,
south.
36 hours, fought back, baby. Competitors, you know how this go.
Yes.
It's FYF Sports. It's Lamont, and we are back with another podcast episode. A new topic, a new day. Michael Jordan's first retirement. Was it a secret suspension by the NBA? Michael Jordan was one of the greatest players to ever play the game and has been considered by many to be the best ever. He was a dominant offensive player who could score as well as anyone and was equally as great on the defensive end. He was also a winner as he led the Chicago Bulls to 6 NBA championships in the 90s and 2 separate three-peats. In the beginning of his career, Jordan was a dominant individual player, but he was overshadowed by the greatness of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, who were both legends on championship contending teams. So on the other hand, Jordan's Bulls weren't a championship contender until the early 90s, around Jordan's 6 and 7 seasons, when Scottie Pippen became a great all-around player and the majority of the great teams of the 80s had declined. However, once he had a good enough supporting cast, he completely dominated the league for a majority of a decade and cemented himself as a legend of the game and the best player of that decade. However, he mysteriously retired after he led the Chicago Bulls to their first three-peat for over a year and a half before coming back and leading the team to another three-peat. The question one would ask is, why would the face of the league on the best team in the league, who was known for his enormous competitive drive and desire to be the best ever, suddenly retire in the middle of his prime? Let's take a look at the facts. In 1992, after winning his second championship, Michael Jordan was called to testify in the criminal trial of a man by the name of James Bowler to explain why Bowler, a convicted drug dealer, was in possession of a Jordan signed personal check for $57,000. First, Michael Jordan claimed it was a business loan, but under oath he admitted that it was a payment for gambling losses over the course of a single weekend. Then, in early 1993, a San Diego businessman by the name of Richard Equinas revealed in his book, Michael and Me, Our Gambling Addiction, My Cry for Help, that he had won over $900,000 from Jordan on golf betting. Also, around the same time, Jordan was spotted in an Atlantic City casino in the early hours on the morning of Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. After the Bulls won their third championship, the NBA launched an investigation into Jordan's gambling problems to check whether he had violated any league rules. Then, 4 months later, Jordan stunned the NBA world by suddenly retiring from professional basketball. At the press conference, when he was asked if he would ever return, he said, 5 years down the road, if the urge comes back, if the Bulls will have me, if David Stern lets me back in the league, I may come back. Now, why in the world would Jordan ever say if David Stern lets him back, then maybe he would come back, when the reporter didn't mention David Stern's name in the question at all? Only days after Jordan's announced his retirement, the league then dropped its investigation into Michael Jordan, saying he did nothing wrong. I guess betting numerous amounts on sports isn't wrong then. Was there a secret agreement between Michael Jordan and David Stern, where David Stern told him to simply retire and create a distraction so that he wouldn't face a suspension and have his huge marketable name stay clean? The distraction occurred when Jordan then decided to play minor league baseball in the White Sox organization, even though he would have had trouble hitting a beach ball, yet alone a baseball. In 102 games with the Barons, Michael Jordan had a 20% batting average, along with 3 homers, 51 RBIs, 30 stolen bases, and 114 strikeouts. Also, in the much respected book Money, Players, Days and Nights Inside the New NBA by Armin Katayan, it states that in 1993, the league had an interview with Richard Equinas during their investigation on Jordan's gambling. He said that in March of 1992, he overheard on a telephone conversation Jordan was having with an unknown person. During the conversation, he had heard Jordan talking about a betting line. He stated that Michael said, "So you say the line is 7 points? The game MJ was talking about isn't known, but the accusations are extremely serious, as that it would mean Jordan was indeed betting on sports. He was breaking a sacred, unwritten rule for all professional athletes, as that it is against the integrity of the game." Personally, in my opinion on this subject, I believe that Jordan and David Stern did have a secret meeting where Stern told Jordan to leave the game for a brief period of time to save himself, the league's by far most marketable and popular player, in an attempt to save him from embarrassment and the scrutiny from a public suspension. I also think it was done brilliantly by Commissioner David Stern, as today most people don't really know much of this theory, as Jordan's reputation is fantastic, even though he was a huge gambler and a questionable teammate. And because Jordan came back less than 2 years later and won 3 more rings with the Chicago Bulls before retiring a second time. Now, more facts have been revealed that lend a bit more credibility to the secret suspension theory. Tony Kukoc reveals how he knew that Michael Jordan was coming back from retirement in 1995. He states Jordan never left. During the 2020 NBA All-Star Weekend in Chicago, Tony Kukoc shared the secret of Jordan's return. Kukoc revealed that Jordan never really left in 1993, as he practiced with the Bulls once a month throughout his baseball adventure. Bulls players eventually thought that Jordan wasn't going forever. Still, there was no indication of when he would return. Kukoc had an interview, right, with an intern in Croatia, and he explained how he deduced when Jordan was coming back. And Tony Kukoc stated, "One day I came into the locker room and Michael Jordan had dozens of shoes in his locker. Everyone knew he didn't bring so much gear for just one practice. We weren't allowed to talk about it until he announced it himself. All he did was send a fax in saying, 'I'm back.'" Now, Jordan's return, he did come back. His first game was on March 19th, 1995. Jordan didn't travel with the team. He ended up taking a private jet to Indiana. to manage the craziness that was about to happen. And so the main reason why I believe this theory is because I simply don't believe a player as competitive as Michael Jordan would suddenly retire right at the peak of his career to supposedly play baseball when he knew he wasn't that good. And because he said he was too worn out because of past championship runs and also the 1992 Olympics. So MJ was the best player on the best team, and he wanted to be the best to ever play the game. So I don't believe he would have retired on his own volition when he knew if he had played, his Bulls would have undoubtedly extended their streak of championships to 4, unless a major injury had occurred. Overall, I'm not 100% certain about my opinion that Jordan was actually secretly suspended instead of retiring on his own. But I do think there was a really good chance that this occurred because it doesn't make sense that he retired when he did. Now, what do you guys think? You guys let me know your thoughts about this. We've heard a ton of stories about this. We've heard a ton of reports. A lot of people like to allude to Jordan's father being murdered as having some role in his retirement as well. But man, I just truly believe where there is smoke, there is fire. And when you do a deep dive investigating some of the things surrounding Michael Jordan's suspension, when we look at him as a player at the peak of his stardom, and we see that he just retired, giving it all up to play baseball, we have to start asking questions. And I'm amazed that the media at the time, the media that so very much so loved Michael Jordan, did not do an investigation of their own, making light of some of the questionable things that were going on surrounding his retirement. But you guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this. I think is a very interesting story to look into. Not necessarily talking about this to slight Michael Jordan. I just think it's an interesting and unique take on why a player would retire. One of the caliber of Michael Jordan, not just retire in their prime. And I think it's just very odd that there was not a lot of media scrutiny or media questions surrounding his very oddly timed retirement. So once again, you guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you guys believe that David Stern and Michael Jordan had some type of secret agreement for him to retire to avoid public scrutiny from the face of the league? And that is, again, very possible. David Stern was an extremely brilliant NBA commissioner. You guys, it's FYF Sports. It's been another great podcast episode. We will be back with more sports and news, but until then, it's FYF Sports, and we out.